Kia ora, g'day, welcome back once again. This is part 10 of my reaction to Mr. Chris Vansant, former Delta Force operator on the Shawn Ryan show. So let's jump back in.
I just gave him a split second long enough to get rid of it, and he didn't get shot.
Damn. What year were you guys in Afghanistan?
That was 02.
02? Oh,
Yeah.
shit, this is very early.
Yeah, that's super early. Yeah, that was like OIF 1. Like I said, C Squadron was like this. I think they were the second rotation from our unit to go over.
Okay.
B Squadron had done Gecko prior.
So 8 hits. I don't know how target rich that environment was at that particular time. I was still in training, but I would think there would be a lot of targets. What was special about those 8 targets to send a tier 1 asset after?
Good question. And I don't even remember. At one point we laughed. At one point we did a route reconnaissance.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember the older guys all bitching that you're sending the most highly trained individuals in the world to do a route recon to confirm if a bridge is out or not.
Shit.
Looking back, hindsight, I think it was a combination of things. You know, we had limited assets at that point. Our collection capability was nothing like it was several years later. We didn't have eyes overhead. You know, we had like a P3 Orion at 10,000 feet because of the hard deck was like 9,500 feet because they were worried of Stinger missiles and all that stuff. Like it was a real early time. And I think they were coming up with stuff to do. So like before I got.
Wow, that's interesting, eh? Yeah, I mean, sending out the lads, sending out the boys, the best of the best in their unit, in their country, to do a route reconnaissance, to check if certain areas or bridges out. Crazy, but it gives an idea in terms of, you know, there was no drones and stuff being used at that time. There were no drones being used. Well, we didn't have any drones being used in, I guess, what do you call it, the second Gulf War, the invasion of Iraq in 2003 for these weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, so he's there in 2002 in Afghanistan at that time on his first operation. 8 hits. I guess maybe, I don't know, but maybe the head shed might have been looking to try to find stuff for them to do, like you were saying, or get the boys on some sort of work. But a route reconnaissance, that seems, I don't know what the rationale was for that, but the lads being the boys by the sounds of things, they went and did it anyway.
Out there, they did some joint stuff with the Kiwis, with New Zealand SAS, like some mobility stuff down south. We did a route reconnaissance. We did a.
That's cool as. These guys did some work with the Kiwi SAS. Wow, awesome. Wonder who the lads were. Wonder if Jamie and them were part of that. Probably most of the fellas that I can picture were probably part of that.
Recce mission where we inserted and like went up in the hills and did some observation. We did a couple of hits, you know, and the hit was like a low vis hit. So for me, I was like, this is cool. Like I'm in low vis is the funniest term ever, right? It's white guys in body armor and civilian clothes.
It's crack up. I might insert some images of some of the boys in the low vis as an overlay. But what was I going to say? I just had these guys doing hits. I assume that's with the Kiwi guys as well in terms of what he's talking about, or maybe it was just the mobility stuff. But it sounded like. Let me just go back actually.
Inserted and like went up in the hills and did some observation. We did a real early time, and I think they were coming up with stuff to do. So like before I got there, they did some joint stuff with the Kiwis, with New Zealand SAS, like some mobility stuff down south. We did a route reconnaissance. We did a recce mission where we inserted and like went up in the hills and did some observation. We did a couple of hits, you know, and the hit was like.
So yeah, it sounds like they did a couple of hits. When you're saying we did a couple of hits, it sounds like it was a joint piece or task force operation, whatever you want to call it, for that period of time with regards to being down south, doing some mobility stuff. Then he kept saying we, and then we did some observation stuff. We did a couple of hits. That's cool.
A low vis hit. So for me, I was like, this is cool. Like I'm in low vis is the funniest term ever, right? It's white guys in body armor and civilian clothes. We're low vis, you know, in Tacomas or whatever, Hiluxes or whatever. I just think I think there was limited intelligence. I think there was limited things to do that early. and they just didn't know where guys were. So this is post.
Where were you guys at that early?
All over. So we were in Bagram. We flew down the coast and did some stuff down there. We flew or drove up through Jalalabad to Asadabad, and we were in Asadabad for a little bit.
Were all these fobs like stood up already?
Just starting to stand up. So
okay.
Jbad was a safe house. Asadabad was a small fob. I don't remember what was down south, and then Bagram was small but growing.
Shit.
But yeah, like Tora Bora and all that stuff had happened just before all that. So everybody went to ground after Tora Bora, like when all those events happened. So I think we were there right in that time when there was just nothing.
No wonder. Yeah, I was just going to say, after the Tora Bora stuff that you've seen, I think John Shrek McPhee's spoken a fair bit about that. Not that I've looked into or seen a lot of his stuff, but the snippets and clips that I have done reactions to, I've heard him talk a lot about that. Wouldn't be surprised if after that a lot of them went to ground. So it sounds like it was reasonably, dare I say, quiet in terms of what was happening, or probably the insurgents, the terrorists, regrouping themselves, reorganizing themselves, and doing a bit of a reset and redistribution in terms of their resources and their people, I would imagine, and then start coming out to play later on, I guess. The season may have had something to do with that as well. I don't know what time of year. I'm not sure if he mentioned it was winter or summer or what it was.
Everybody went to Stone Age. Nobody knew where anybody was. We'd killed a bunch of guys early on and dropped a lot of bombs, and the targets dried up. So yeah, there wasn't a lot to do.
No shit.
Yeah. So like guys that when I got there, like dudes that had been there AFO for months and were involved in Tora Bora and, the John McPhee's of the world, Sheriff of Baghdad and all those cats. Like I remember thinking how badass that was. Like these dudes had just been out here. We flew into coast and there was a couple dudes that had been there for like months, like living in this shithole, with like a tent, and they would get rocketed every night. They had a joke about if they lit a fire, they would get mortared or rocketed. And so one night they cracked a bunch of chem lights and threw them in a pile where they still got a rocket. But yeah, I remember looking up to those guys, and they were raggedy and dirty and had huge Afghani beards. And I can't even grow beards still to this day. But I remember thinking, man, this dude's been here a long time. Like they've been getting after it. And
Babyface, eh? You're saying he still can't grow a beard to this day. I'm probably similar. I have blinking this little goatee, which can grow some length on it, but then the sides are just a bit blinking. What do you call it? It's like little patches of blinking tussock bushes that will just grow off to the side and look blinking just stupid. So I just shave it.
And then we finished up at the end of that rotation and went home, and I was like, yeah, that was a lot different than I thought it was going to be. But looking back, no, it was good. Like I got to integrate with the team.
Got to cut his teeth, eh? Still did some hits and some jobs. Did a co-op job based on what he was saying with the Kiwis, with the NZSAS lads. That's pretty awesome. It'd be interesting to hear, and I think that's the part that comes to mind for me. Is just I was surprised at some of the stuff that I was hearing about jobs that NZSAS guys while I was going through cycle, but even just before then, before I went on selection. There were rumors. I don't know how true they were, so I won't worry about speaking about them here because I never spoke with anybody to try to confirm the things that I was hearing from other guys. But there was this, there were a fair bit of conversations in terms of, units, members from the group, or that's what it was called at the time. The group, I think it's referred to as NZSA's regiment these days, but it was one NZSA's group back in the day. I don't know when it changed to the regiment, but when it was referred to as the group, there was talk about, guys going away on jobs that just weren't spoken about. Obviously, some of those jobs must have been spoken about for the rumor mill to start, or maybe they were just fabricated out of thin air. But I would imagine that there's likely a fair amount of truth to a lot of some of the stuff that I heard about anyway, in terms of jobs that the guys would go on, and whether that was with whether they were joint jobs or whether there was a small part of the group deployed to areas where coalition forces were, and they were then being utilised for different jobs and tasks. Just things that I suppose us here in NZ, maybe other parts of the world, probably don't realise just how, dare I say, just how much the NZ unit has been used. Do they have the blinking toys and funding that the US and Australia and UK have? No, they don't. But it's cool to know that they are highly respected, highly regarded, as they should be too. Like, I mean, the SAS units themselves have done a heck of a lot of work, and I think have got enough, my opinion, my biased opinion, I think they've got enough runs on the board in terms of those that have laid the foundations and gone about their business and doing the things that they've done.
Yeah, I can't imagine joining a team in combat in like 05, 06, 07. Like, that would have been a completely different experience.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll get into Iraq.
Cool.
All right, Chris, we're back. You just did a pump in Afghanistan, your first one at the unit. You come back. Now you're going to Iraq. How long did you come home for before you're heading over to Iraq?
Yeah, we got home in July. I think by mid-fall, we were in full-blown. We knew that we were potentially going to invade Iraq, and we were doing a full-blown, prep training for doing a long-range desert mobility and invading the country. And then I think we deployed in February of 03 to RR Saudi Arabia, which was our staging point to kick off the invasion.
No shit.
Well, it's interesting. That's where they were, eh? They deployed in February. I can't remember exactly when. We must have been around February as well, I guess, by the time we deployed. And we went into, Amman, Jordan, where our staging base, forward operating base was, and where a whole bunch of training and things took place prior to, inserting across and into the Western Desert.
I mean, how did that feel, knowing that you're going to go be on the initial front for invading a country?
Wild. Yeah. We were excited. One, there was the historic nature of it. So take away all the sides of going to war or not going to war. When you train,
just the thought that comes to mind, like, it's hearing them say that they were excited about it. I think anybody in that that has worked and put in the time, effort, and energy to get to where you want to get to in a unit like that, Delta Force, DevGru, and SAS, commandos, etc. When you've put in that time, effort, and energy, and you get to a place like that, and then you're going to have the opportunity to deploy, you already knew beforehand, before you got to a place like that, that this was a high possibility, and this is why you join. Like I've said in multiple videos, everybody will have their own reasons and that sort of thing, and a large part of those reasons, I think, for a number of people, at least for me, but I also think similarly, probably similar thoughts, but there'll be some nuanced stuff for each individual, is because you don't want tyrants and people that are doing bad things and or have done bad things to other people or even to their own people to continue to have that opportunity to reign with the power that they have, or to wield that power that they have. You go into a job like an SF role and that sort of thing because you want to have an opportunity to be put to work to, in my opinion anyway, to remove people that are idiots, basically, and to have an opportunity to do that with people that you admire, that you respect, that you trust, is quite a feeling.
To be a part of one of the most elite organizations on the planet, it's like practicing to play in a football game. You want to play in the football game. So we were pumped. We were excited. We were excited that we were chosen to be the force that did that particular mission set. There was some legacy there. So the unit had done long-range desert mobility in the first Gulf War, basically hunting scuds in the western desert of Iraq to try to eliminate that threat and Saddam's ability to influence things outside of the country and shoot those missiles into Saudi Arabia and other countries. In this particular case, it was a different mission set, but along the same lines. So we were basically hunting WMD throughout the western desert, current intel believed, and hindsight does a lot of things to the Iraq war, you and I both know. But at the time, we firmly believed that he had some type of WMD in whatever form we assumed.
I like that he's brought that up there. I think we all believed what we were being presented with on, again, dare I say, mainstream media. And we believed what the government personnel were showing us in their, I guess, what do you call it, satellite footage, or maybe it was drone footage they were referring to it as, I don't know, that Saddam had WMDs. And so we were all drawn into that. And again, like the boys, like we were locked into that. Like, let's find these things and let's destroy them. Let's call the aircraft in and destroy them. If we can't get the aircraft, if STS, for whatever reason, if we can't get air assets to come over, then we're going to look to destroy those things ourselves. We've got other kit and capabilities that we can use within the team, and we would use it if we needed to. But as everybody knows, what WMDs?
It was chemical at that time. And that if he was going to have it, that it was going to be stored not in Baghdad or Tikrit, but it was going to be outside of the city, in one of their outstations of their ammo supply points that were moving west out of Baghdad and into the Western Desert. So yeah, we were excited, nervous, I think. But the legacy piece, you know, having been done in the first Gulf War, and then, you know, the last time a desert mobility was done prior to that was like way back in World War II, like in North Africa. So it was a pretty neat thing to train and prepare for. It was different. It's not like you covered desert mobility in OTC.
Yeah.
You know, I think I probably had as much experience as anybody in that. You know, I had done that rotation to Kuwait with a mechanized.
What I found interesting about, so there's been more and more little bits and pieces that I've discovered from what I've heard about the Delta Force selection. And yes, the Delta Force selection process is modeled on UK 22 SAS, but it's not, it sounds like they do have a separation, whereas UK SF selection for, like, say, 22 as an example, from what I've heard based on Big Phil Campion, is that 6-month long period, whereby it sounds like it's New Zealand and Australia's selection and cycle, what we refer to as selection and cycle, combined into their 6 months, which is cool. The modelling of the UK SF selection, based on the other bits and pieces that I've heard, there was the old Paratrooper podcast recently whereby he's interviewing the son, I think, of one of the founders, one of the early founders of Delta Force. And I think the son, his dad, was obviously one of the founders of Delta Force, but also had passed the UK 22 SA selection. And the son, anyway, was speaking on there. The snippet that I saw was that Delta Force selection runs for about a month. And then after that, then they go to this OTC, or the Operator Training Center, or Operator Training Course. So it sounds like, to me, when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know how long their OTC goes for. Maybe that's another 6 months or longer. But to me, that sounded like a similar breakup to what New Zealand and Australia do, with the period of time where they have selection, and then they go several months to a year of the courses, or what might be the equivalent, what sounded like to me the equivalent of the US Delta Force OTC. So yeah, that was interesting. That just stuck out to me and just popped into my head now as I was listening to this guy talk about OTC again.
Nice unit. So I personally, I understood what it was like to be out unsupported in the middle of the desert and crossing long distances. So yeah, I was super pumped and excited for it. The weird part was when I got to our Saudi Arabia. Here's our universe discussion right here. So when I got to our Saudi Arabia, there were 2 other units that were co-located with us. One was some components of 3rd Ranger Battalion, one of which was Charlie Company, 3rd Ranger Battalion, which is the company that I was a part of.
No shit.
The other was one company from the 82nd Airborne Division, which were accompanying like a HIMARS detachment or something else, but it was Alpha Company 2nd 325.
Damn.
So literally 2 of the 3 other organizations I had ever been a part of were all in that same spot at that point in time in history. And I've thought about that over the years. I'm like, what are the odds? If I'd have stayed in 3rd Ranger Battalion, and I don't know what I would have been at that point, probably a squad leader or something, but I would have been right there. if I would have stayed in Alpha Company Second 325, I would have been right there. Like,
Damn,
that's a really weird.
that is crazy.
Yeah. So I think that even at the time, I think I took that like, this is where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think
A sign, eh? Took it as a sign. This is where I'm meant to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Everything happens for a reason. Wow, that's pretty. That sounds like it must have been pretty surreal for him. Is probably the word I was thinking of.
I had a lot more, at least personal confidence going into that than I did going to Afghanistan, because I had deployed once. I'd gotten to know my team. I felt like we had trained and prepared very well for that, and we were ready to go.
How long were you there before you guys crossed the border?
A couple weeks, I think. Yeah. It was not a very good, it was a kind of miserable existence. They slowly but surely shoved a bunch of people into that area, and we didn't have the support structure to do it. So like in the beginning, we had like 4 porta potties for like 400 dudes.
Oh,
So they were literally overflowing. It was
Holy heck. Bloody bugger that. Yeah, nah, stuff that.
disgusting. It was cold, like the weather wasn't great. It was winter still out in the desert. Yeah, but I think it was a couple of weeks before we got our like last mission brief and speech from the JSOC commander, and
I'm just glad we didn't have that. It wasn't 4 porta potties or portaloos between 400 people. That was a big camp, and the camp that we were at in Amman, or part of Amman in Jordan, was pretty well established. So yeah, we were very fortunate in that regard. We were just staying in tents though. Had what are they, 20 by 30, 30 by 40, 20 by 40, something like that. Can't even remember the blink and the numbers used for those these days. But just big tent. Each I want to say each team, or was it each troop? I think it was each team, or maybe a bit more than a team. There's probably, I don't know, say 10 to 15 people, maybe more, in each tent that we were in. On your stretcher with your pack and kit and weapons stowed away. The stores, logistics guys, bless them, had their space. Everybody had their space. The Chooks guys, the SIGs, the EW guys, the, dare I say, the 4 Squadron guys. Wasn't necessarily called 4 Squadron, not that I remember anyway. It was called a different name. Those guys were there. Headquarters had their space in that as well, and then we had the lecture rooms and all that sort of stuff. Had toilets, yeah, and there was a mess that we would all go to as well. So get some PT in. We got some PT in while we were there as part of the day to day. You know, getting up and keeping the body ticking over, keeping the blood moving. Get into the work, go over the vehicles. Did some training with the other troops. I remember because I was part of VM, there was just sort of some allocation of training. So vehicle mounted guys were tasked with running some training. It was probably more so refresher training for guys from the other 2 troops, even though they were free fall and water operators. Like I think pretty much all of those guys, the senior guys anyway, had been to Afghanistan anyway, and we were already used to and already had vehicle mounted operations under their belt. So it was probably just more refresher, but VM was tasked with leading it. I played a very small role, just a token, because I was part of VM, so part of the demonstrations, so to speak, not delivering the instruction. The senior guys, patrol commanders, corporals, and that sort of thing were delivering the instruction, and I was just the body on the ground doing the things that that we needed to do, or that we would carry out actions on type stuff. Then what else were we doing? When we weren't doing that stuff, when the training and stuff was done, or for refamiliarization, I guess would be, like I said, for those other guys, and maybe slightly newer for the newer guys from my cohort, because I was lucky after we'd done cycle, then obviously I went on the vehicle mounted course, which went for, we went right up to Exmouth. That was awesome, but that was my first time seeing all the red dirt. Driving up there, we drove up there with the LRPVs, Unimogs, and a whole bunch of other stores and stuff. How long was it? Maybe 6 weeks or longer, 6 or 8 weeks, something like that. It was awesome though. I enjoyed it, enjoyed the course, and so I had some knowledge. Whereas the other guys, when we finished cycle and went to our squadron, they would have been preparing and doing their insertions. So 3-4 guys doing that, water operators doing their course. So it may have been, or likely would have been, more new for those guys from my cohort. Whereas the other guys in their team would have brought them up to speed anyway. Other things we were doing during that time was getting our vehicles ready, all the camouflaging and stuff of the vehicles, adding the Hessian and stuff to them, setting up the gunners that were in the turret. So for me, being on the Mark 19 and being in the gun, setting that up and getting familiar with how that would feel, where I wanted to put things, how I was going to position my ammo so that I could rip that out and the ammo containers out, stack them up, and then load the weapon as fast as I could. Where I could stack that and how much I could have. And then I remember we would go around and have a look, like the water operator guys, 3-4 guys, and we'd go around and have a little nose in how each other had set them up. Guys with the Mark 19 would typically go and have a look at each other's, get some ideas, because some of the other guys might have had better ideas in terms of what they've done and why they've done it. And it's go, oh yeah, actually I like that idea. Yeah, that's better. I think I'm going to do that too. Go back and then do some more modifications to how we had everything. And and then just when it was time to get out and do some training, which we did, a lot of live fire training. How long were we there for? Because I think he mentioned they were their fob for about a couple of weeks before they went in, by the sounds of things. So I would assume we might have been pretty similar, 2 to 3 weeks maybe, before crossing the border on whatever it was. I think March, was it the 20th of March, something like that? Not 100% sure of the exact date, but in March anyway. But yeah, there was a heck of a lot happening. Javelin training, the little birds, some coordination with the little birds and stuff that came as part of the pre-deployment training in country, or in the forward operating base in Oman anyway, not in Iraq at that stage. And and a fair amount of shooting to prepare to get ready.
Off we went.
Damn, I can't even imagine the anticipation of, I mean, is it going to be today? Did you guys know when it was going to be?
No, like the exact day. No, I not that I recall in the beginning.
Yeah, we definitely didn't know the exact day. But Shawn's right. The anticipation of, is it going to be today? Are we just doing this for nothing? I don't know that. I don't think I or any of us ever had that thought of, it's probably not going to happen, because everything that had been pumped on the media, the fact that there's such an investment to uplift and shift a squadron over there, the resources, everything that was there, even though it's likely nothing compared to what it would have been like when Afghan started really kicking off and getting busy in 06, 07 and onwards. I'm not sure what it was like in 05. But it just seemed like too big of an investment for it to not go ahead, from what we had been told anyway and what we were anticipating. We just didn't know when we would be crossing the border. So yeah, it was more a case of when do we cross the border rather than if or maybe we won't.
I mean, they would do team leader meetings and stuff every day, and they would talk about things, but I don't remember us having a hard date till shortly before we left. But like I said, we weren't there that long. There's in most of the portions of that border between Iraq and Saudi Arabia, there's a double berm system. That's really all that separates it. It's not like there's fencing or anything else. And so there's 2 berms, and then at various intervals with miles and miles between them are Iraqi outposts that are like towers, where they would post, Iraqi military guys to sort of keep watch on the border. So we knew we had to cross those 2 berms. We were going to do it in between outposts. That aviation assets, helos, 160th guys, we're going to take out the 2 outposts on either side and a radio communications point to hopefully silence their ability to say, hey, someone has crossed into our country.
Pretty interesting, man. Just hearing them describe that, it's like, yeah, very like the same, except minus the aircraft taking out any of the towers. So we had, when we crossed, there were American troops. I don't know which, but shout out to them. I don't know which American unit or division or platoon, whatever the description is for that American unit that was there, that cleared the berms for us. and enabled us to be able to clear those berms to get across into country and then start going. And all I remember is at night under nods, seeing the American troops, not seeing them clearly, so I couldn't make out any faces at night time, but them saluting us as we were crossing into the border, wishing us luck. I thought, that's cool, man. Just the patriotism of those guys, the willingness to just get in there, clear the berm so that we could get through. And then when it was time for us to rock and roll, line up and get ready to roll out, and then wheels up, that's what happened. And then they're standing there and they've got their salute happening as we cross over, and a few words of encouragement from them as we go. And yeah, just then into it from there, where we found no weapons of mass destruction. Anyway, heck, that's about 30 minutes. I'll leave this one here. It brings back some memories just hearing Chris describe some of his, just a fraction of his experiences so far, from his trip in Afghanistan to now in Iraq. There's still a few minutes left of this one, and then he has got a part 2, which I'll continue with the reactions to that and chip away at getting through that. I think part 2 goes for another 3 hours, so this is about nearly 2.5 hours, and I think his part 2 goes for over 3 hours. So it's going to take me a heck of a lot more videos to complete the reactions to this guy's incredible experience and operational history that he has. So if you're going to stick around for that or stop in from time to time to have a watch, thank you very much. Thank you for your time and support regardless anyway. And look after yourselves, and you'll see me on the next one.